save this session for the future when I will hopefully hold it again somewhere. But hello from Oslo, and this is our opera house. I cannot promise you this guy every time, but you know, we see that the world starts slowly to get back to normal, and hopefully we can start to travel again. So if you at some point in time will be in Oslo, please connect with me on LinkedIn or Twitter, and I'll be happy to show you around. And this is also what is called barcode now in Oslo. So like 10 years ago, this buildings was not there. So Oslo has been through a tremendous transformation the last few years, and we are getting more and more high buildings here as well. So it's getting a really exciting waterfront, which is really, really nice. But yeah, Microsoft Viva, this slide you have probably seen before. I'm pretty sure, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. I want to talk more about like what you as an organization, what your company needs to do to be ready for Microsoft Viva, or are Microsoft Viva actually ready for us to start to use now, or is it better to wait until it has been out for a little bit longer time, because we all know that Microsoft loves to push stuff out in a really, really early release, and we are all kind of their beta testers or whatever before we get the real version out after some months afterwards. But what is making Viva that unique? And this is kind of what Microsoft trying to do with Viva, is to put the employee like you and me in the front seat. You know, that it's all about the experiences. So for us as an employee, making sure that we are getting the things that we need. We can work faster, quicker, better, and especially now with so much of the workforce working remotely because of the COVID and everything. And I don't think we will get back to normal anytime soon, because I remember like from before, I was like one time I traveled for a conference down under in Australia, and I traveled there like 2 days. I spent time going there. I was at the conference for 2 days, and then I used 2 days to get back. So I was actually more in the plane than I was at that conference, or in Australia for that matter. Or for instance, like typically what we are doing in Norway is that we jump on the plane to go to another city to have a customer meeting, instead of just doing that meeting on Teams as we are doing right now. So then I don't think that we will get back to all those crazy trips to just have a 1 hour meeting with a client or something like that. So and of course, some statistic is that nearly 60% of the people says that they feel less connected to the team after shifting to remote work. And this was actually done last year. And I'm pretty sure if you have done the similar one this year, it will be an even higher number, because the longer period of time you don't meet up with your colleagues, you get less and less connected with them. And this is also why we see a lot of shiftings right now in people changing from one company to another company. They're changing their work because you don't have the same bond, you don't have the same loyalty with your employer, because you're anyways sitting and working from home. So in some ways you can work for any company, you know, if to look at it black and white. And this is where we really need as an organization to find ways to really make that kind of corporate feeling again within our company. So what can we do to prepare ourselves for Viva? First of all, we need to figure out like who are working in our company, like what are their needs, what are their preferences. Do we have a lot of frontline workers? Do we have a lot of office workers? Do we need to give them like HR tools? Do we need to have a way to register for who should be in the office, yes or no? Like all of those kind of things is what we really need to look into. And we need to do a discovery to find those personas, like to find who we have in our organization and how to make the most out of those. And of course, during finding these personas, we also will find some superheroes, you know, like internally, that later on will help us to implement and get that adoption going for our new solutions that we are wanting to roll out. And if you just go quickly back for a few slides, we shouldn't forget that we actually have 4 products right now within Microsoft Viva. So we have the Insights, we have the Topics, and then we have Learning, and we have Connections. And as Microsoft has said, it might be more joining the Viva family later on. We of course need to plan, because without planning, we are just cowboys, and we're just going out and doing things automatically, like we just to do things without thinking. And sometimes when you don't think or you don't plan, it doesn't turn out good. And this is also what we see with Microsoft Teams right now. Every organization, they was starting to roll out Microsoft Teams, and then suddenly we get that sprawl, we get issues with governance and all this kind of stuff because we didn't have a plan. So that's why it's really, really important when it comes to Microsoft Viva that we actually have a plan, that we actually take that discovery phase and we are gathering information and we are transforming that into some plans about when it's the right time to launch Viva and which parts of Viva shall we launch, because some organizations, they might only want connections, because that will help us to connect with our employees and to get information from the company down to all of the employees. Maybe somebody else, they would want to have topics because they have a huge organization, and as Virgil just talked about topics before, you have the possibility to really easily build that knowledge management system in some ways, where you have that artificial intelligence, that can help you come with suggestions of keywords or these kind of things that have been used multiple times in the organization. And that's why maybe we need to have a topic card of that keyword, and this is a little bit similar to how we actually had in Yammer before, where we can actually write tags and then we could find all other things that had the same tag. But as we all know, there's always been this discussion about Yammer, does it have its place, and all these kind of things, and that's something we'll get back to later as well. But when it comes to planning, we really need to plan so we can also launch the Viva to the right audience at the right time. Because if we don't do that, it will be a fail, and we don't want to just waste our time or our employees' time, because also if we launch Viva Connections, say right now, there's a lot of new features coming out later this summer, with Viva Connections, and maybe right now, it's a little bit underwhelming, like what we get in there, because in some ways it's just your SharePoint home site inside of Teams. Yay, that's like awesome, but that we could have done like for a year already. But for right now, it's only that, and you get that global navigation that I will show you later. So maybe it's underwhelming. Maybe our employees expect more of something like that. And maybe they have seen some slides where they show like that dashboard functionality and those things that will come out later this summer. And then maybe because of that, it's actually better to wait, because if we start to roll out something and the users are missing some functionality there, they are not going to go back into that same solution later because it already failed. And that's what also brings us to, yes, we need to have some pilots as well, because if you don't have that, then of course we cannot test things. So we need to test it with a small set of users. Those users later will be also those superheroes, as we talked about before, so they can help with adoption all around our company afterwards, and they can kind of help push and help with adoption of the solution that you're trying to roll out. This is the same, even if it's Viva, if it's an Omnia intranet, or if it's a migration project. This is exactly the same anyways. You need to have some pilots, collect some data, look into the data, and afterwards we should go ahead and launch it more widely. And I mentioned a little bit before about the frontline workers. And of course, if you have workers that are on the front line, we need to consider that those will use Viva differently. And we need to ensure that they have access to the devices and the necessarily require access that they are required to have. And even more importantly, the image that you see on my screen right now, this is not yet available. So this is kind of that dashboard and the feed functionality and the resources that is coming as part of the Viva mobile experience that is coming, Viva Connection mobile experience that is coming later this summer. So if you have frontline workers, it makes no sense in some ways to start to roll out Viva Connections right now. That would be a lot better to wait until we get that Viva Connection app going already for the mobile. Before you can do anything else, you need to have a modern intranet inside of SharePoint. So that means modern SharePoint, because without that, you're not going to be able to do anything. So that will be the first step that you actually need to do anything. And we talked a little bit about Yammer before, and Yammer enables some employees to be able to engage as part of the Viva experience. So for instance, you can have the Yammer feed, you can have some other things from Yammer as well into Viva. So this is a way, again, Microsoft is trying to connect the different tools that they're having, and you just need to look into your organization. Do we see that there's a need of Yammer? Do we think that Yammer is a good idea for us? Yes or no? Because if it's not already there and you think it's a good idea, you need to also plan a launch of Yammer. And here we see kind of the Yammer inside of the Microsoft Teams with the Yammer community app that Microsoft is having for Yammer. And of course, another great thing here would be, of course, then to look into, shall we start to use this? Because especially right now when it comes to remote work, and as I mentioned before, the organization are really missing that connection with their employees, or that loyalty, or feeling that we are like one Viva or one Omnia or one A point, you know, and we are like one team in our company, and right now this is something that is missing, you know, or they're missing that the CEO of the company can connect with me in an unofficial way, you know, like we would have done if you have had a coffee with the coffee machine in our office, you know, and we are missing that. And this is where I actually do think that Yammer right now will have a great fit, because it could have been used for having those social vibes inside of the company. So for instance, if I'm a frontline worker and I'm at my workplace, I can then post about that in Yammer. If I'm the CEO, I could every Friday post video, or every Monday post a video about like, hey team, let's do this together, and all this kind of stuff. And we can have for instance, if somebody is finally at the office and the office has been locked down for multiple months because of COVID, we could also take an image, take a video, post it, and other people can react to that. And for those things, Yammer is a really great fit. The Teams mobile app, and yes, many of the benefits of Viva will come with the Teams mobile app. It's not yet there with the Viva connection, as mentioned before, but why not start already right now and make sure that people can access actually the Teams through the mobile phone? Because maybe you haven't rolled it out already in your organization, maybe you're holding it a little bit back. And this is where we can really benefit from having that already now started to be pushed out to your employees. Of course, as part of Teams, we can unpin things inside of the Teams left navigation. And this is where, of course, we need to pin both the Yammer there. If you want to use Viva Insights, we need to pin that one there. Whatever we need to pin there, we will have to pin there. So it will be easier for our users to find those set of tools that we really want them to use. And of course, we need to set the SharePoint intranet as a home site to be able to access it into Viva Connections. But let's go a little bit more down. This is an example of how Viva connection can look like. I will show you that live in a few seconds. Actually, let's just do it right now. And then we will go and look at what steps are required to set up Viva Connections for your organization. So for instance, here, this is my intranet, because as part of getting ready for Viva, we really need to get ready for Viva as part of setting up that intranet inside of modern SharePoint. So if you are not already in modern SharePoint, you need to go there. If you are using some solutions that is not inside of SharePoint, you need to figure out like how you can integrate that into SharePoint in some ways if you want to use Viva Connections. But if you're okay with only getting your intranet into Teams, of course, there are other alternatives than Viva Connection also out there in the market, as we should not forget. But as part of an intranet, we always need to have an idea and a plan around having our navigation. So we need to have a navigation plan. We need to have how our front page should look like what type of UI do we want to have on the landing? Should we have like the 3 columns? Should we have like One third column should have full width, all those things we need to plan for our intranet. And we need also to plan for how we can do it when it comes to the mega menu and how we should do it with security trimming, because maybe some things people should not see as part of the that are sensitive, and then we need to review that as well. And we'll get back to later why we need to review those permissions. So, but we need to create a beautiful looking intranet landing page, and then to create our navigation structure to replicate that. You see here that right now I'm inside of SharePoint. So this is my SharePoint home site. I can also go and switch over to this one. Here we see now that we are inside of Teams. It's more or less the same experience there. We can also go and jump to SharePoint from Teams within here. And we can, of course, go and check how this one looks like, because here you see that we are actually having our navigation coming in. I haven't enabled global navigation here, but this is the app launcher from inside of SharePoint. And we are having here my sites that I have visited. We have the news. And here on the top, we also have that global navigation coming over. Let's see if not my last environment is having that available. So this one also didn't have it right now. Okay, that's okay. There's a setting we can look into there to enable that global nav as well. So this one doesn't have it. Then let's just jump back here and let's open up Teams. And here you will see inside of the hub, you will see that we have our global navigation coming here. I can click see more to see more of it, but you need to be really aware that if you're building a huge mega menu or huge list of navigation items, that you only show the 1, 2, 3, 4 first nodes here. Then you have to click here to go to the second level. The home we need to just create, because if I don't have this one, there's no way that if I will navigate to my London office here and I want to click then afterwards here to get back home, I cannot do that. And that's why we just need to have one home landing page that is accessible from everywhere as well. So to prepare your intranet for Viva, we need to first of all really just make the intranet inside of SharePoint and SharePoint model. And if we'll just jump back to the slides, we can talk a little bit about what else we need to do. So we need to create a SharePoint home site, as I mentioned. And when it comes to the SharePoint home site, it can also be a modern SharePoint communication site. But that's what we need to look into. As mentioned before, we need to consider to update Yammer if you haven't done it already, because you have the old version of Yammer and the new. And if you haven't started using new, you need to look into, can we do that? Or is it some users or security, whatever, that is different in the new one, and that's why we cannot do it. Every page needs to be migrated to modern SharePoint and plan for it to have a site structure. You should build that global navigation that I just mentioned. And even more importantly, that you should start to think about, if you haven't done it already, is to create some Azure Active Directory groups to make it possible for us to personalize the content, because we can say that this navigation item is just for the teachers, for instance, and then this navigation item is just for the students. And that's the way we can really go in and do that. And that we can do already now, even if we are not planning to roll out Viva Connections tomorrow. And then we're coming to the topics. And let's see if we can talk also about insights and about learning later on, but let's focus now about the topic. And here maybe Virgil mentioned a few things as well. So I'm sorry if I'm repeating it, but this is kind of a, important to know some of those steps that is required here. So, for instance, when it comes to getting ready for Viva Topics, one thing that a lot of people might think is that Viva Topics will scan your SharePoint sites and your OneDrive sites, for instance, or scan other things. But right now, it doesn't do that. It's not going to be able to scan the OneDrive files. It's only going to scan the the SharePoint files. So if you have a lot of users that is wanting to work on files or whatever, and you want those things to pop up when it comes to Viva topics, you need to go and really start to move the data from OneDrive to SharePoint, because Viva Topics does not search or scan your OneDrive files. So we need to migrate and move the files from OneDrive to SharePoint. Whatever we can do, of course, with Microsoft Graph, we will do. We need to look into, of course, modernizing our SharePoint pages if you haven't done that already. And as mentioned here, we need to secure the content appropriately, you know, because if I have shared some files wrong, they could end up and being suggested to add those files into the topic, and by this, it's kind of not that great that we will suddenly see things that we shouldn't see, for instance. So we need to really go in and review all of the security settings. And then after that, we need to go and identify knowledge managers and the topics that we want to use. And as mentioned, we need to migrate to SharePoint because topic indexing only works with SharePoint sites. Where it's possible, migrate also content from other external sources and into SharePoint Online so that the topic can start to use it. But if you are a small organization, you don't have too many documents, then topics are not for you, because topics are getting better and better the more users you have, the more documents you have, and these kind of things. And of course, we should prioritize the content. We should go also and really highlight what are the benefits from moving from a knowledge management system, and to encourage them to move the content from the OneDrive into the SharePoint sites, as mentioned before. Let's just go and jump and take a look at how this one as well is looking like inside of the topic center, and also how to configure this as well in your admin center. So here I have my topic center. Here you see that just as Roger probably showed as well, you have suggested topics. So these are topics that has been suggested automatically for me. Also impressions here, if the higher it is, the better. So you of course need to have those topic managers that is going in and looking into this one and approving topics, removing topics, publish them, and that's it. You can go and look at the confirmed ones. So we have School of Fine Art, Western Regional Cells, for instance, and we have the published ones, as you can see here. And here we have an example, which is called SOR, and this is then the topic card for this. If you go back and look a little bit deeper, we'll see that this is a SharePoint page where we have the possibility to go in and, of course, edit like anybody else. And we can go and put in our acronyms and so on here. So you can do here Chicago like this. And now if I use M365 Chicago anywhere, I can get that same Hoover card over that you just saw. And here we can, of course, go in and add new people. We can remove the ones that are there because maybe somebody left the company and then we need to change it. And here we have pinned files and pages, and these are suggested files and pages. So here you need to have some people that can go in and actually pin them up here, the ones that are suggested. So if I want to pin this one, I'll just click like this, and now it's pinned up here instead, which is really nice and great. But behind the topic center, we have also other things, you know. So if you go in here and we go in the setup, we will see here that we have the possibility to go in and configure how things are shared and so on. So if you go a little bit down, we will see that we have files and content, and this is where Viva Connect comes in, and Viva Topics. So connect people to knowledge. You see that the wizard has been completed. If you haven't done this before, then you will come in here and be able to configure that wizard. And if anybody has questions, feel free to pop them in the questions in the chat. I will look at them afterwards because right now I'm only on one screen. So here we see the topic discovery, and here you see that we can go in and select where we should go and scan for files. So you can go and look at this one. You see here that is only selected sites, and we have added Excel file here where we have the sites that we want to have and scan to find our topic cards. So this is where you can go in and actually configure things in case you are kind of a little bit lost in it. They're not sure how the security, etc., has been put around everywhere. Then you can kind of go in here and say, okay, I want just to scan this, and that site, and that will also be fine. We can also do excluding of some topics because maybe there are some bad words or whatever that we really don't want to show up. So we can do that as well. We can go on the topic visibility and we can see who can see topics. And here we need to really think, because when it comes to seeing topics, then it means that we need to have a license for topics. And to have a license for topics means that you have to pay around $6 per month per user. So it's a pretty expensive toy or solution from Microsoft that we really need to look into. Does this fit into what you want to have? Or maybe it's better to wait until Microsoft will reduce the prices, or to look at some alternatives if this doesn't work for you. Here is the permissions, and this is where we can configure who should be able to create and edit topics, and who can manage them. And in the last one, we can go in and pick the name of our topic center and the side of the topic center as well. So if you will go a little bit back to my slides again, and I think we also will have time to speak a little bit about the other things here. I'll just switch off the light here, and then let's see. Okay, we'll go in here. So when it comes to topics, it's really important to make sure that everything is security trimmed properly, because here people will or files, whatever, will be lifted up if the topic word has been used somewhere, then it will come in and highlight that. You need to identify also content that might have too much permissions, like so that everybody can access something and it shouldn't have been there. So this is a really good exercise that everyone can do in the organization to really get ready for Viva, is to make sure that permissions, all those things, have been put in the right place. And topic, of course, indexing honors the configuration that you have been doing in Microsoft or in the SharePoint Search or in Delve, like for instance, a non-index, so that you will not be able to scan those sites. But you should do a review again to make sure that all those configurations are still relevant for you and your organization. We need to go in and identify some knowledge managers, because those knowledge managers will really help us to create the topics. They will go in and help us to confirm AI suggested topics to or promote them. We need to go in, also have the subject matter experts. Those are the people that should go in and be able to modify the topic cards in itself, like the page behind, like the SharePoint page behind. So, and also that we can add them there if somebody wants to ask someone about the topic or the question in place. And we of course need to identify some sites that has a large body of valuable data, because as I mentioned in the beginning, we really need to do some pilot work to understand if this is the right tool for us or not. And when it comes to planning for topics, you need to ask yourself some questions and plan for that. Because as I showed you in my really brief demo, you need to choose which SharePoint sites you should crawl for the topics. You need also to decide which topic, if any, you want to exclude from the topic experience. Maybe there are some some things that you don't want to show up there, and then that's possible as well. We also need to decide which user we want to make topics visible for, because again, we don't want people to see things that they shouldn't or get some issues. And we need also to go in and name the topic center, as I just showed you in the demo. So this is some personas that we're having, and of course, Viva Topics is costing around $5 or $6 per user per month. So it is an investment to take. But on the other hand, you will have one of the more, really a great solution around knowledge management and a portal where people can actually find information that is relevant for them, so that they can go and work more efficiently inside of your company. I have some resources over here and questions I will come back to later, but let's just go and take a really brief look at Viva Insights as well, since we are having 10 more minutes before we'll open for questions. So when it comes to Viva Insights, we actually need to have that app for Teams, which is called Insights over here. So when I will click this one, we'll come in here into the Viva Insights, and here we'll see that we have the possibility to say how I'm feeling today. We have a possibility to send a praise to one of my colleagues or more. We have a welcoming message here, and then we have over here we have some more web parts that comes in, and this one is that you should be able to take a break, and this is all around the well-being of yourself inside of the company. And in this next session after mine, we'll go in much more deep dive in when it comes to well-being and Viva Insights, but I thought it will be nice to have just a small sneak peek about it. We can go in here and protect my time, so I can just book a time with myself, so that I know what I should do, and that is also a great feature here. I'm not sure if the stay connected work in this environment, but this is also really cool. So if I haven't RSVP'd to an event or a meeting, whatever, it will show up here, and we can go and then reply directly from here. We can pin some colleagues to make sure that we are staying connected with them. If I didn't have a one-on-one meeting with one of my colleagues for very, very long, it can also show up here, and it will be much, much easier for me to then keep a focus and stay connected inside of my organization. So here we are when it comes to this one. But as I mentioned, with Viva Insights, the first thing you need to do is just to pin it. You also need to understand that there are some different license roles there, so you need to check what part, or if you have the licenses, or if you need to buy some licenses to take advantage of this as well. So yeah. What about Viva Learning? So when it comes to Viva Learning, of course, Microsoft is coming with connectors to a lot of different learning platforms like Pluralsight, LinkedIn, etc., etc. So that, of course, will come, and those will give us some different solutions that we can choose or test and so on. But what we can do is that if you want to start it small and you just want to provide the data for the learning and those things internally yourself, then that is also possible to do, and we can start to do that already now and start to plan for that with installing and configuring the learning pathway as a site template inside of Microsoft SharePoint as well. For instance, in some of my environments, I also wanted to show you was that if I'm hover over here, nothing happens, and that is typically can be because you have targeted release of your release cycle not configured correctly. So that's something that you can go in and take a look at. So yeah. I suggest that let's just jump, and I will show a couple of more things, and then we'll open to the questions. So if you go into over here, we'll see that in this environment, we have used the mega menu. We have used in my other environment here, we also have the, as you can see, if I'll go back to my connections here into my hub, over here we have our navigation here. And this navigation, as you can see, is the same, and it's a replica of the one that you have here. So that's why it's really important to also think around, like, how shall we create our navigation? How shall we do the global navigation? Because that one will always be here, and it will always be as part of the app launch over here as well. So when we go, for instance, into a sub page or whatever here, we'll go to the site design one, let's say, then now we could in some ways have changed our menu on the top, because we anyways will have it accessible from over here. So that's we could kind of have like the global navigation is the top level ones, and then we can have every single link page under there, for instance. And of course, we need to look and review the intranet designs. We need to plan how should everything be now in the organization. If you haven't gone to SharePoint Modern already, you need to really plan for that at least. There's no way back then to do that when it comes to Microsoft Viva. So yeah, and let's just jump back to my slide. And if anyone has questions, I'll go and check out the chat right now and see if you have some questions. No, looks like we don't have any questions. Feel free to pop in someone if you have. Okay, do you have the hub set as just a home site or also a hub site? Yeah, that is a great question. In this particular case, it is, as we can see here, this is actually a home hub site that has been set as a home site. And you can see here that I don't have my global navigation coming in actually from this one within here, and that's because I went to the department right now. So if we'll go back to my hub, then we should be able to go and configure that global navigation within here. And if that doesn't show up, there can be a trick or two that you can go in and look here. And here you see it's a hub or a global navigation. There are some discussions if it's better to have a home site or if it's better to set up a modern communication site and use that as the home site, because you can just run that PowerShell script to create it into a home site. So that's something you need to look into and think and plan how is it better for you. If you already have, of course, intranet site that is not the home site, that is a modern communication site, the easiest choice will be to just put that as a home site. But if that will be a more problematical one for the future, that is still kind of on the bench. That's not been 100% clear as of now. But here you see typically when you come in and with the global navigation setting, this is switched to off, and you just need to switch it on. And if you don't have that in there, you should go and check out inside of the admin center here. Now I was inside of the setup, but you can go into here into your org settings. Like for instance, here you see the release preference. So here I have target release for selected users, and sometimes that it can be a target release for everyone. Then it doesn't work, and then you can put it to selected users, and then it will after some time come in, and then you can just put it back to this one or whichever preference you had before, again afterwards. So yeah, great question. Thank you for that one. Laura Davis, yes, thank you. So yeah, that's it from my side. If nobody has questions, then I will give you a little bit of time to recover before the next session, where it's all about the Microsoft Viva well-being and more around the Viva Insights. I just briefly touched the kind of the surface there, because I knew that there will be somebody talking about this afterwards. So I don't want to steal their thunder. So help us improve the conference. So give the feedback. I also want to highlight again that you should join, if you can, of course, the Microsoft 365 Chicago in supporting the public schools. And if you haven't stopped by the sponsors yet, then please do that right now and go and chat with them and say hi and say thank you for supporting the conference and supporting our community. With that being said, I'm getting close to midnight here in Norway, so it has been a pleasure to be here, and thank you everybody for joining. And feel free to, as mentioned, connect with me on the social media with the Twitter and the LinkedIn. I will post links here inside of here. And nice to see Nico here as well, and my colleague Darren. So thank you for joining. And yeah, enjoy the rest of the day, and hopefully we will meet each other at some point in time. And Jay, thank you so much for being my moderator and taking care of me. And if there's no more questions, I will just say thank you to everybody and see you around.